Wagyu Khalsa, Wagyu for the ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Media Watch. I'm your host, Dr. Savvy. Every week we try and pick up stories from around the world. We focus on media in particular, in the way in which Sikhs and other general stories are actually presented. Now this week we're doing a special to look at global issues and whether or not they're covered, whether or not it's fair in terms of the way in which media actually operates. Two topics in particular. One, we're going to talk about polio and its eradication. It's a massive humanitarian effort in terms of going on, and there's only a couple of countries left to get to a point where we don't have polio anymore in the world. It's a subject that we don't seem to get a lot of information about. More pertinent, and right now in the news, is the terrible situation in Punjab, where you see deaths, we see a lot of brutality going on. And we had an episode last week on the news on the BBC. Personally, from what I've seen, I've not seen a lot of coverage in the main press, whether it be an article or whether it be news features. Some may argue that there have been certain language-orientated press releases from the BBC talking about the fact that there's an issue out there, but I haven't really seen much myself, and I'm not a person that can read Hindi or go to the Hindi website, but it's good there is some coverage. It's better than no coverage, but there's literally like no coverage if it's global. So Jagmeet was on a show on the BBC, and it was an interesting show because it was talking about interfaith marriages. He did try and explain the importance of the fact that the Guru Granth Sahib should be really respected. It was quite difficult in terms of a lot of people in the actual interview situation, but towards the end I think either he was a little bit frustrated with what was going on, but he saw an opportunity to communicate the fact that maybe we really need to bring this issue to a fore and prevent further deaths, and he felt really passionate about it. So we've got him in the studio to talk specifically about how he was feeling and what the issues were. So my three guests today are, we've got Mukesh Malhotra. He's a counsellor. He's also working for the Rotary organisation. He's been there for many years, and he's doing some tremendous work with regards to trying to eradicate polio as one of the initiatives that he's working on. We've also got Jasvir from the SikhPA, and he will talk about the importance of having a press association and how important it is to have consistency. And of course, last but not least, and there's a big hashtag thing going on at the moment on Twitter, which is Sikh Lives Matter, and that is Jagmeet, and it's great to have our guests in the show. Welcome to the show. Wagyu Khalsa.
Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
I will start off with Mukesh. Now, Mukesh, I actually read up on the website called endpolio.org. There was a gentleman called, he's Ahsan Ahmed. He's a UNICEF Next General Ambassador. And he says, he writes lots of articles, and he says, engaging youth may be getting us to the finishing line, right, to paraphrase. He says, I think that polio eradication is so much bigger than a single person or a single country. It is a demonstration of global citizenship and a testimony of our humanity and our responsibility towards one another. Therefore, as global citizens, our united front has the power to defeat the disease for good. Do you think? What do you think about that? And also, I wanted to ask you in the context, and we've been having a discussion about this outside of the studio, about something, it's a bit of an appalling statement called sympathy exhaustion. What is that?
Well, why would that be turned around and say it's polio exhaustion rather than sympathy exhaustion? Rotary's been involved with polio eradication since 1979, when the first project took place in the Philippines. Then in 1985, the United Nations, with Rotary, took on a global program to eradicate polio. Most of the people in the Western or Northern countries don't need to worry about that. But the folks in the developing world and in the southern countries, polio was still there. And if you imagine back, and this week is Back to the Future week.
Yes, there is Back to the Future Day.
And it's we've had a situation where 1985 was mentioned, and here we are today in 2015. If you go back in time, more than 2/3 of the world still had polio.
You've been out there, haven't you?
I have been out there.
Picture of you out there, and you're actually giving.
Yeah, I have, and I can tell you lots of stories about that. But I think, if we had time, I'd tell you about it. But it's a life-changing moment that you actually give life to children. I know on that occasion, I immunized 125 children.
Wow.
And I was told that because they did a tick list. But then they also told me on that particular day, the total immunization was over 250,000 children.
Yeah, we got an image up showing the end polio fundraising is still happening as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why it's happening is we're at that last mile. The last mile is that, as I said, we started back in '85 as a global program. We've had all the support, and recently, with the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they are doing some matching grants so that for every dollar we raise, they give us 2.
It's good. It's good that the corporations, get involved in its corporate responsibility.
Well, the thing is, Rotary itself, if you think about it, it's being trusted. It's a trusted partner. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation trust Rotary to do the job. So we're about to finish that. And we're down to just 2 weeks ago, Nigeria was declared polio-free.
So how many countries now altogether left?
We're left now with just 2 countries, and that is the hardest, last mile, as we would say, project.
Absolutely.
And that's Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more. Now, we want to talk also about some other initiatives. A Lungara Week as well took place as well. And you were involved in that in some way?
Well, I was, in a sense, in the community, because some of the work that Rotary does is that we support food banks and community cafes. And the community cafes aren't just talking about food, it's also talking about issues around isolation. There are many people out there who don't have anywhere. And by going to a community cafe, whether you go to a mosque, or whether you go to a Hindu temple, or whether you go to the Gurdwara, I know for a fact I visit all of them, and all of them say they've had an increase in the number of people attending because of the austere times we're living in.
Right.
And it's great to see community cohesion in that respect. That if I go to the Gurdwara, I will see people from all sorts of backgrounds, and as long as they don't break any of the rules, they are more made to feel very welcome.
Jasvir, I wanted to bring you in here. You're from the SikhPA, right? I saw something on Facebook recently. It was really quite cute, actually. I don't know if you saw it. It was a Rastafarian.
Yeah, I have seen that.
About
Yeah,
the beauty of Lungara and how loved he felt. And this was actually in Salt Lake City, isn't it?
Yeah,
where they're doing the World Religion Conference at the moment.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how great it was and how he received it and how fantastic the food was. Do you think initiatives like global humanitarian work that's going on, whether it be from because one of the great things is a good thing. There are many charities doing work. I always believe that you've got lots of people from different backgrounds, concentrate on one thing, then it kind of brings the world together.
Yeah.
Do you think that one of the things that SikhPA can do is be that consolidator and consistent point of information?
Most definitely. I would have to say, yeah, and Lungara Week's a good example of that, because what we saw the Rastafarian man talking about is something that we were getting a lot of people all around the world to talk about for that specific week. And in regards to being a reference point for information, that's something that we're definitely trying to do. So we're not only putting information out there, but when situations arise, as the situation in Punjab is now, we try and collate information also. So it's both ebb and a flow, you could say, of information.
Was there a hashtag for that? Was that hashtag Lungara Week? Was that?
Yeah, it was a hashtag Lungara Week.
So hashtag here.
Exactly.
Hashtag Sikh Lives Matter. There has been some negativity associated with the fact that it was actually Black Lives Matter and other lives matter and whatever. I mean, they're all in their own context. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, I mean, there are some people out there that feel Sikh Lives Matter is appropriating, whatever that really means, the Black Lives Matter hashtag. What I would say to that is I think it's actually following a path that was created by the Black Lives Matter campaign. Black Lives Matter summarized the whole situation in just 3 words in a hashtag, and that situation is very similar to what is going on with the Sikhs in Punjab. You're talking about the police force and authority being extremely heavy-handed actually underplays what is going on, and killing unarmed men, and the parallels are just so obvious that
isn't it important to actually understand the bigger picture as well? For example, farmers. There's an article called, I don't know if you've read the article called The White Fly Effect.
Indeed,
I think that's what it's called, isn't it? A bit like a butterfly chaos type effect. And that's kind of like, whether it be Hindus or Sikhs or people in Punjab, there are many different people that live in that area. if you're not going to get the right fertilizer, it's going to destroy your crops and it's going to put pressure. It doesn't matter what religious background you are from, it's going to affect the farms. Now, there's been that situation, then it's in this situation, and sometimes what you find is so much information out there, it's difficult to make sense of what is actually happening and what politics are at play, right? So we're not going to discuss the politics here, but how important is it to bring out the truth, And where it's so kind of cloudy and you get like almost like a media blackout that we've seen in the past as well.
Well, I don't think we can, to support what you're saying, in this modern day and age, there isn't such a thing as media blackout.
Okay.
All of us in this room,
iPads.
right, have become world journalists.
I'll turn your Wi-Fi off.
Well, only because it's that advert on the TV from a certain company, but we are world journalists now. Some of the feeds...
Citizen journalists.
Well, citizen journalists. But the fact is that we can now, even like today, we're being put on Periscope.
We are on Periscope,
okay?
yeah.
Quite easily, if there was somebody out there who had Periscope in these situations, he or she could be transmitting live feeds.
It's unrealistic for them to turn the internet off for everyone, isn't it?
Absolutely. The only challenge we face is that when central government take over and they then pull the plug like they do in certain countries.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Okay, and they'll filter
certain websites.
Yeah, I have friends who can't use YouTube in certain countries, right? So I have to find an alternative way or find a proxy server. Okay, but we're talking too technical now. But I don't think some of the issues which we're just talking about and what you've highlighted...
So it can be prevented from coming to the surface.
No, it's going to happen.
So I wanted to bring Jagmeet here. Wonderful to see you on the show. I know you've been on a few more. It's good that you came to my one.
No, yeah, definitely.
Or Sikh channel one. I appreciate that. Now, I mentioned it before, and I'll repeat it again. I thought personally when you were doing the interview, you were very professional, you looked really good. In a sense, barricade is a strong word, but I just think that there was like so many questions being fired at you, and you weren't able to put across what you wanted to put across because you kept being interrupted by other people. And as there's no criticism to anybody, but maybe they were passionate about the subject, or maybe for them, they felt it was they want to get their word in, and you couldn't get your word in, right? So what about what was going through your mind when you thought, okay, we're about to cut to another part of a segment of the show. I'll just stand up and say this, because did you think that you didn't want to prevent any more deaths? Was that what was going through your mind?
Yeah, definitely.
Without putting words in your mouth, of course.
No, it's quite accurate, to be fair. Over the last 10 days, over the last week, we've all been hearing what's happening in the Punjab, and we've all felt that pain, and we've all wished we could do something. And I could never imagine that Waheguruji would actually put me in a position that I might be able to do something or say something that might make a small difference. I was called onto the show to actually discuss quite, in my opinion, a trivial topic, interfaith marriages and how they affect the Sikh community, which, to be fair, they really don't affect the Sikh community, because maybe 5 people get affected per year, but it's been so...
Got an image there on the screen showing...
yeah. Well, that image just shows that I was just thinking, like, what nonsense is being said here, and something of value that I was trying to get across, they weren't having it, and we needed to actually tell them the truth about the Sikh experience and what is going on.
So the ripple effect of that, I call it ripple effects, was you had an article in the Metro, and an article in the Independent. Two articles.
There's been an article, I think, in
Vice magazine.
Well, very quickly, the BBC did put something up on the website, didn't they?
Exactly.
They actually did feature it, yeah?
No, they didn't. It was on BBC Trending, and they were forced to do it because it was actually trending. So the BBC didn't do anything themselves.
Good point.
The public
Very
did
good
it.
point.
Okay. So that's the
That
power
goes
of the
back to
people.
that's what I said. It's back to being a citizen.
I just want to touch on one point that I can't agree that we're all journalists and we live in this magical age where we all have the internet in our hand and we're on Periscope. We're on Periscope right now, but there's maybe only one person watching, possibly 0 people watching.
Well, I think Periscope has over 10 million people, but in all account users.
Exactly, it's quite new. But the point is, we have 3 Sikh channels here alone in the UK, and they've been non-stop coverage, basically.
And actually, they've all been outstanding in terms of covering...
No, but my point is, they've done a great job, but no, it hasn't gone anywhere apart from... it hasn't gone outside the Sikh community. So we don't live in the media age where everybody is a journalist, because the message is not going out there. And I know firsthand, because I've been dealing with journalists, proper, real journalists, mainstream journalists, every single day over the last few days, and they have absolutely 0 idea. and they don't even know where to begin to look.
Is there idea about what?
About what's going on in Punjab.
Right, okay.
They think Punjab is the land of milk and honey, that everything's just fine, that all the Sikhs in the West seem to be really, really rich, really educated, giving lots of money to everybody, giving to charity. They think there's no problem in the Sikh world. What are these Sikhs on about?
Does that say something about the background of those journalists that you're dealing with, or does it say something about the fact that we've done a great job to communicate how good the Sikhs are in the world? Or is it, there's a lot of questions here,
yeah, sure.
Is it the fact that, and I remember going to the Golden Temple exhibition that took place 2-3 years ago, and I did do the film for it as well, which was nice that I got an opportunity to do it. And somebody stood up in one of the showings that was there and said, wouldn't it be good if Sikhs were recognised for the humanitarian work that they do? I mean, there are many people that do humanitarian work. People are not brought forward who do humanitarian work, like the polio stuff, like the Langar, like, you know, going out to, you know, some of the, you know, Sikh Aid have done some stuff, I think, Khalsa Aid, you know, the Sikh Channel Aid. There's loads of organisations that go out and do work. There's SWAT that go out night after night into central London and feed the homeless. We don't seem to get that. Is it because it's not on our agenda? Do you think that the media represents the community that we have in the UK today?
No, not at all. And that is the value that Sikh Press Association now add. If what happened on Sunday happened last year when there was no Sikh Press Association, it would be impossible to get the level of coverage, international coverage that we did get. Everything's 13, you know, Sabkush Tera, the charity that actually runs Sikh Press Association and Basis of Sikhi, they set up this project last year, and having this mechanism in place, all of the international media had a hub that they could actually communicate with and get the accurate story. And I know Jasvir himself, we've been working very closely together, and he's worked tirelessly to talk to media outlet after media outlet after media outlet, and they had a trusted source of information.
Are you phoning them or they're phoning you?
Well, after what Jagmeet did, they have suddenly started phoning us, but previously, and for most part, it is me phoning them.
So what actually happened, now there's a big mystery, you can clear it up for us.
Yeah.
So they break to the segment, and then they come back, and you're not there.
Well, I just want to tell you...
Did they have a conversation with you?
I just want to tell you how we got to that point.
It would be a good idea if you left right now.
No,
was it something what was going on there?
Describe how we got to that point, because the previous segment actually went over 10 minutes more than it should have. So I asked the producers, what's going on? I should have been on 10 minutes ago. And they said, oh, this happens in live TV sometimes. Don't worry, we'll make it up. And I said, okay, that's fine. I knew how much time we were going to have. And then I was trying to get, the Punjab situation, I was going to bring it up. I was always going to bring it up. I was going to bring it up conversationally.
You were bringing I noticed it. If
Yeah.
you watch the show, I would strongly recommend that people actually watch this. If you watch the entire, I think it's about an hour, isn't it, the whole show?
Yeah, it's about an
Watch it in the context of what it actually is. You have tried to explain it, but you were blocked off.
It's on the
So it's not like it
SikhPA
was a
website,
sudden thing that you came up with, in my view.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, they actually brought me on there because I was recently married to a Spanish woman who's a convert into Sikhi. So it was about...
She's here today, isn't she?
Yeah, she's here watching, yeah. So we were talking about that, and they just wanted me to give some anecdotal evidence or like some my perspective on that. But I knew, as I speak about the issue around Anant Gardages, which again to me is a non-issue, at the heart of that issue lies disrespect of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, who is our living Guru, the embodiment of Sri Guru Nanak Dev
So I'll
Ji.
take that point and bring it forward to you guys in terms of, do you think that there's enough knowledge? I mean, I don't know much about Hinduism, I don't know much about Islam. You know, we try our best to teach our kids what we can
Yeah,
about
but unfortunately, because I sit in a group called Friends of Faith,
Right.
we try and ensure that we try and help in terms of teaching people about tolerance.
I used to be the chair of the Interfaith Youth Trust, and they
Right,
had a
and I'm
fund.
part of the other part, which is in Hounslow, which is the Friends of Faith, which in other local areas there isn't one.
So does that mean that
go and
because we don't
support.
know enough about them, in actual fact, you could actually magnify that and say maybe journalists don't know? You mentioned the fact that they think certain things about Sikh community. So what can we do?
Yeah, but
to
go
better
back to what you
educate?
said at the
Do you
beginning of the
go
show.
to- do you go to
You said at the beginning of the
schools,
show,
you know?
Jon Snow says that the people who actually make up the stories, who sit in the positions of influence, don't actually come from a sufficiently wide enough multicultural background. It goes in today's news about Theresa May complaining about the police.
Right.
Right.
That there aren't enough women and also
both
brown
women.
black people.
No, it's not just I don't think the word brown is appropriate. I think it's more of a case that we don't reflect
They said
our
black
local
and women.
communities.
That's the expression that was used this morning.
Yeah, but then if you go back to South Africa, you know, using the word black is actually not the right word. You should be actually saying multicultural, because that's what we are. Our families came here in the 50s and 60s, right? We've progressed. You know, I cannot imagine you having a show back in 1963.
Yeah, but who's watching the show, though? Yeah, Near Zindagi Near Jeevan, which was the program.
Yeah, well, you and I grew up with that. But,
yeah, and that was also very kind of, if you look at it, it's quite patronising, even though, you know, that is how you speak English, and, you know, stick on some person who can play a bit of music, you know, who's probably quite good and quite famous. But we don't really get, you know, and
we never got any media.
never get any programmes. If it's like Islam, you know, they've got a Ramadan or something, there'll be like 11:30 at night, you'll get the show. It's like everybody's staying awake till 11:30 at night to watch it. If there's anything about Sikhism or Hinduism going on, they will show a programme at 1 o'clock in the morning. You know,
and that's only Channel 4. And only Channel 4.
It's Indian Movie Week. Let's put it on Channel 4 or whatever.
Only Channel 4. Last night it was
Why do they do
Channel
that?
Express.
Why are they doing this? Is it because they're not reflective of who we are, or is it because not enough journalists coming forward?
I think you could say it's a bit of both. I think we're coming to an age now where we are seeing more and more people of ethnic minorities in these kinds of positions.
John also said in this particular channel, I recommend you watch it on YouTube, he said just because a brown person's reading news doesn't mean that they're controlling the editorial. Right, now you're, in theory, got the editorial, but because you have an episode, people are interested in talking to you. In 2 weeks' time, they may not be interested in talking to you. What do you say about that?
Completely agree with that, and that's something that's very likely, and something that we need to prepare for, because without something sensational, which is what Jagmeet's sections were to media.
Coincidentally. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, without something of that nature, it's not always easy to push certain stories that mainstream, the general public, might not always connect with. So it's up to us to find the angle to make it connect with someone. And when you're looking at, say, back to the situation in Punjab, it is, again, a human rights issue. But on a bigger scale as well, we're talking about a so-called democratic nation that Britain trades with regularly and in
you could argue that
amounts.
it trades with China, right? And,
exactly.
And when the question gets asked...
And what has happened with China recently?
When you get asked a question about human rights, human rights was the answer, but in the context of their real-world situation. So within their context of what they feel. So people that live in Punjab think in their context, this is how they're doing, their political system, you know? I wanted to just raise one point, we've only got a few minutes left, can you believe, that if you had an opportunity, right, and I'll ask a question to all three of you in about 30 seconds, so would you welcome an opportunity to have a program with Sian Williams and just say to her, hey, let's go off and research this issue and do a joint program? Do you think that would be something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah,
maybe you should.
I think that would be really easy research for her. All she have to do is type in Sikh genocide into any Google page, and it's going to be the first thing that you see.
Okay.
Because that's what actually the non-Sikh community did. When I spoke up that day, they typed it into Google, and there was a plethora of information there. And then they all were saying, they were tweeting and Facebooking, why didn't we know about this? It's actually everywhere. So if somebody actually just, and that was the message I was trying to get across to the media that over the last few days, is this story is so massive that it's just sitting on a silver platter for any journalist to make their name with. And everybody's going to wonder why they didn't do it sooner.
Okay, so we've got about 30 seconds each for you guys, probably less, hopefully.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Well, I just want to close by saying thank you for letting me come on the show.
That's all right.
But in terms of this point about polio, all I can say that the project which I've been involved with, we're going to celebrate that we have saved in the past 20 months.
There's a special date. Tell me about
24th of October is World Polio Day.
All right.
And my own little project with my friend Suzanne, right, we put together, in the past 20 months, theoretically, we have saved 6.9 million children.
Fantastic. Jasvir, just quickly, because we've literally got a few seconds left. Tell us.
Very quickly.
Better education, you think?
Yeah, I would say definitely better education, but also Sikhs, we need to take responsibility for our own situations, and therefore Sikh Press Association is expanding. It's not about me personally. We could have other organisations that do similar jobs. It's all about the bump.
Yeah, but you can talk about that. I can then turn around and say, well, what about the Kashmiri pundits who are having they're having just as hard time.
Okay.
In the last few seconds, I just want to make a bend to anybody listening that, you know what, this kind of stuff happens. All we can do is take responsibility for ourselves. So let's all learn about our good and build our relationship with our good
learn
stronger.
about other things that are going around the world and actually hopefully communicate that better from a central point. Unfortunately, that's all that we've got time for this week. We hope you got some inspiration from our guests. Do something for charity, learn more about your religion, understand the situation out there, the bigger, wider political dimension that actually exists. We hope to see you next time. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.